Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching this from. My name is Eric Whitner. I'm a senior product manager on the Geo-enabled systems team here at Esri. I'm responsible for smart cities and specifically ArcGIS Urban and CityEngine. And I want to talk to you today about Urban and CityEngine and how they're used for smart city planning and walk you through some of the new capabilities we added in recent releases. Cities across the world today are facing a tremendous number of challenges. In my home state here of California, we're seeing an incredible housing shortfall that is driving unaffordable housing prices. Many of these cities have to produce thousands of new units in order to meet their goals over the coming decade. In addition, cities are reeling from the impacts of COVID, trying to understand how they're going to redesign public spaces and public transportation in order to accommodate the needs of their citizens. What they need is a platform where they can coordinate these activities, where the planning teams that work within the cities who are developing the regulations that guide change can coordinate with the developers and architects who are proposing change on the ground in the form of projects and communicate those with the citizens and get their feedback so they can understand what they want and what they will approve. And traditionally, the way cities have worked has been on physical models or paper plans. But with the emergence of readily available 3D data, such as 3D features extracted through machine learning or reality captured 3D meshes that are really visually compelling and rich, there's this huge opportunity to actually do the representation of this change, be it regulatory change or new projects, against much richer 3D data. So a little over a year and a half ago, we released ArcGIS Urban. ArcGIS Urban can connect the public and private sectors together by providing a common data model available for representing this urban change. It provides a place for multidisciplinary teams to work together, improve their decision-making, and help to eliminate uncertainty in their decision-making process. And it works across the scales of a city, from the regional scale and the regional information model all the way down to the architectural design. And it's focused on providing a common platform for collaboration and for engagement. It starts with being able to visualize your projects citywide and see what activities are going on. This supports collaboration between the public and private stakeholders. For example, here the Boston Planning and Development Agency has shared visual representations of their proposed building projects that are in their permitting pipeline. And those can be shared internally amongst teams for review or with the general public in order to get feedback. ArcGIS Urban also provides the ability to do scenario planning and create visual representations of zoning regulation in 3D alongside the current development activities. A lot of cities are undergoing updates to their zoning codes or their land use codes as they try and accommodate the changes and challenges that they're facing. And ArcGIS Urban allows them to take these regulations and represent them as constraints, as envelopes of what the boundaries of what can be built, or as plausible building forms, and then actually get metrics and measures off those. And that's really one of the most powerful things about ArcGIS Urban is it helps guide and measure the impact of change across the city. Many communities have development scorecards or dashboards that track indicators or key performance metrics, in part because what gets measured actually gets done or doesn't get done if it's bad. And it promotes transparency and accountability between government and the general public. So ArcGIS Urban supports this ability to share data as indicators and metrics for plans and projects. And finally, most importantly, it delivers this ability to engage with members of the public, giving staff an easy way to collaborate internally when they're working on a project and then get digital public feedback when they're proposing a change. And that allows them to communicate to the citizens the important information when they're doing a proposed project. ArcGIS Urban integrates with ArcGIS Hub in order to support these engagement activities. And you can actually combine the plans of Urban with initiatives of Hub as a way to engage the general public. What is ArcGIS Urban? It's a web-based planning system. It's built as an extension of ArcGIS Online, provides a set of web-based tools designed to simplify zoning and land use planning, right? It provides all the information that you need to make informed decisions on what to approve in terms of development and change. And it improves the collaboration between everybody who's involved in the approval process, internally and externally. And then because there's all this transparency and people understand where there's opportunity, it can actually help promote private investment and development in the city to improve its economic opportunities and performance. So what's new in ArcGIS Urban in 2020? One of the things we added was support for meshes. Meshes are becoming more and more common as reality capture gets cheaper and cheaper. We added the ability to add a mesh as a type of base map in ArcGIS Urban. Meshes have generally beautiful textures, so you get this very realistic looking representation of your 3D city, captured usually fairly affordably. The other thing that's really excited about these meshes is that you can add information to them. You can actually drape indicators and other thematic maps directly on them. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a flood hazards risk map for the city of Boston. If I look at my 3D models, I can see the blue areas are where I'm going to get flooded. The areas indicated in pink are buildings that might be impacted. If I switch to my base map, right, you can immediately see pop out the whole building is highlighted in pink that is actually experiencing flood risk. Another new capability of ArcGIS Urban is the ability to support the visualization of BIM models directly inside ArcGIS Urban. Here we have a project in ArcGIS Urban, and we can see the existing condition as represented by this integrated mesh. And for this site, we have a new building that was provided to us. It was a Revit BIM model, and we used ArcGIS Pro to publish it as a building scene layer. We can add that building scene layer into the project and display it here. But we've actually enhanced that even further. Now, if a building scene layer is participating inside of a project, we give you the Building Explorer widget automatically. So here you can see, I can see the different disciplines and categories of features that exist inside that building scene layer. I can expand, for instance, the architectural discipline and look at all the specific types and categories of features that are inside the building. I may choose to turn some of these off. So for instance, I want to look through the walls, so I can turn the walls off, or I want to understand where the doors are located in this building, so I can turn the doors off. Or maybe I want to turn everything off and isolate just columns and curtain walls to understand where the structural components are. In addition to this ability to display by discipline and category, I can also filter my display by level. So if I click on level 4, it makes all levels above 4 transparent and all levels before semi-transparent. And I can click through the different levels of buildings to look at the floor plans at different levels. Just another way that I can explore the inside of this building. If the BIM model had construction phasing information, then I can actually represent the different steps in time series as this building is constructed, showing me when different components are going to be added to this building, which might be important, for instance, for determining when areas around this project might be closed down, such as streets and parking lots, to stage construction equipment. And of course, since it's a web scene, it works with all of our interactive analytical tools, such as slice, line of sight, and measure, if you want to do further exploration, for instance, carve into this building and see the interior. Another capability added was the ability to search for parcels citywide and better understand their zoning potential. So here I'm again looking at the city of Boston. And I'm not logged in, I'm just a public user. And I've heard that there's a project near me that's been approved. So I enter the address and it immediately zooms me to that parcel. And now on that parcel, I can see what zone is assigned to it, how big is the parcel, what's the maximum height of a building allowed on that parcel, what's the floor area ratio that determines the total square footage that I could build on there, and the coverage that's allowed, and what type of space uses are allowed inside that building. So I can understand what's going on a parcel by parcel basis. But maybe I'm looking at this and I say, given that this is an approved project, there's an opportunity for me to build nearby. So I select the adjacent parcel, and again, I can see all this zoning information associated with it that's going to guide my decision. But what I can also do is display the zoning envelope. And this is a regulatory visual representation as a volume of the regulatory constraints to development. I may decide that parcel is too small. I want to look at the adjacent parcel with an existing building and compare what is currently built there and see if that parcel is underutilized when compared to its zoning potential. Neither of these meet my need. I heard there's another development, some more development activity going on at a different location in the city. So I'm going to search for that address, zoom to it, and then I can again look at the parcel information. This site hasn't been approved yet. What is the total potential on this site? And again, I can display the zoning envelope. Ooh, much greater potential. Maybe I decide this is the site I want to use. We've improved the ability of ArcGIS Urban to engage with the public through this integration with Hub Premium. So again, I'm looking at ArcGIS Urban, and again, I'm just a member of the public. I don't have an ArcGIS Urban license, but now I can actually create my own projects even though I don't have an urban license. So I'm going to select this parcel. Again, I've got this parcel information, but you'll notice here, I've got this option to sign in to create a project, and I can sign up to create an account. I click on that and it allows me to enter in my sign-in information to create an account, or I can use a social media such as Google or Facebook to automatically create my account. So I'm going to create an account based on my Google login, define myself a username, create my ArcGIS Online account, and log back in to ArcGIS Urban. Great. Okay, so now I can actually create a project on this selected parcel. I'm going to give it a name, just webinar example for this example, and boom, I've created a project directly on that parcel. So I could be an architect, I could be a developer, I could be a collection of students at a university doing a competition. I could be any member of the public, and I can actually create projects within an exposed instance of ArcGIS Urban. So now I'm going to go in, and another new capability we added with support for meshes was this ability to suppress portions of the mesh where they overlap a project. So I can actually do representations of change against mesh data. So I've added in my project boundary, suppressed the mesh, and now I'm going to use some simple sketching tools to draw in a building mass. I'm going to give that building a specific height. I'm going to make it a multi-part building, so I'm going to stack a slightly setback tower on the top of it to create a representation of my form. These editing tools can create a variety of things. They can create buildings. They can create representations of the surface, such as green space, impermeable surface like concrete or water. I have a library of 3D models that I can use in place, such as trees, to improve the visual appearance of the green space I've proposed adjacent to the sidewalk here. And there's a variety of models. For instance, there's vehicles, there's street furniture that I can place in the scene to enhance my project. The other thing that came out last year was the ArcGIS Urban API. And this allows you to extend the capabilities of ArcGIS Urban. It's currently released in beta. You can access the help documentation using this link. I'm not going to go deeply into the ArcGIS Urban API. There's actually a whole session here at the Developer Summit. I highly recommend you check it out. If you're interested in learning more about how you can develop applications that connect to ArcGIS Urban or publish data from ArcGIS Urban or access data that exists in ArcGIS Urban in your own application. So let's talk briefly about the ArcGIS Urban roadmap. There's a few things we're planning on adding this year. One is custom building modeling. That's the ability to touch these procedurally generated plausible buildings that are created by zoning or land use regulations and move them around on a parcel, change their floor, set their floor backs, change the uses inside floors interactively. And it will also improve the way we create those proposed projects by allowing you to assign space uses to the different floors inside the buildings that you're creating. The most requested feature we've had recently is custom capacity metrics. So this will be the ability to define your own capacity metrics, suppress the ones that ship out of the box if you don't like them. You can chain capacity metrics together. So for instance, population can be based on households. Vehicle trips can be based on population. You can also summarize capacity metrics together. So for a residential area, vehicle trips may be based on population, but for commercial, vehicle trips may be based on the square footage of commercial assigned. You combine those together into a total count of vehicle trips. We'll be improving the feedback system. So we're actually taking the commenting system and bring it inside ArcGIS Urban. So when you have a project or a plan, you can give internal feedback, mark up that project, have discussions that are threaded on specific parts of the project, and then share portions of that internal feedback back with a key stakeholder or with the general public if you want to get their feedback. The ArcGIS Urban Labs team has developed the policy validation tool, which included suitability and place type allocation. And we heard loud and clear from you that you want those capabilities built directly into ArcGIS Urban. So we'll be bringing that suitability analysis and the ability to use that suitability analysis to do selection and development of parcels directly into ArcGIS Urban. The biggest enhancement we're working on this year is project submission. So this is going one step beyond the ability to sketch buildings inside of a project and being able to, in a project, georeference a 2D site plan, an image representing where things are on the ground that you can draw on top of, but then also drop in 3D models and georeference those and persist those in a project. So you'll be able to take 3D models from something like SketchUp, put them in their geographic context on a 2D plan, enhance them by sketching additional buildings around them, enhance them by adding context such as vegetation, street furniture, people, and landscaping, and then submit that to the city for review. And then the city will go through a formal review process using the internal feedback system to give feedback to the stakeholder. The last thing we're working on this year is an ArcGIS Enterprise version of ArcGIS Urban. And that's supporting the ArcGIS Urban data model in enterprise and enterprise services. So you can have an enterprise hosted urban data model and then also a completely on-prem version. So let's talk about ArcGIS CityEngine. ArcGIS CityEngine is a desktop tool for supporting urban design and creation of 3D data. It allows you to import GIS information. Here I have the get map data function, which allows me to define an area of interest and automatically download an elevation surface and a base map for that area, then reach out to OpenStreetMap and get a street network and a collection of building footprints. It then massages all the attributes in those streets and those building footprints to make them usable, and a collection of procedural rules that allow me to create 3D representations of 2D GIS data. And that 2D GIS data could be existing conditions, such as these building footprints, or it could be proposed designs that you're sketching. These rules can represent different styles of buildings. So I'm just going to change a parameter on the rule, and we can see it's actually created a set of textured buildings. And there in just 1 minute, I've created a 3D context for a proposed planning project. I could go in and delete a section of the city and start using these rules in combination with CityEngine's editing tools to sketch in a proposed project. What can rules represent? They can be very simple forms, like a building mass split into facades, so you understand how much window and window space is broken into the side of the building. Maybe some simple assets that are on the building, such as solar panels that you want to do a representation indicating this is a green building. You can take it to the next step and visually enhance that. So you can apply textures, you can apply additional architectural detail, break out the panels of the buildings, give them awnings, give the solar panels textures to make them more attractive, add green space, etc. But because this is a procedurally generated building, it's a rule generated building, the building actually can be given intelligence. It understands what it's made of in terms of its parts, how many awnings it has, how many windows it has, how many panes it has, but also you can define what it contains. In this case, commercial space on the first floor and residential space on the top 3 floors. And then based on all that understanding, all that intelligence, you can drive a set of performance metrics and reports about building to tell you how much energy is this building going to consume, how much water is it going to consume, how much waste is it going to produce, and including basic things like what's the square footage of commercial and residential that this building represents. CityEngine rules aren't just limited to representing buildings. They can also represent streets. They can also represent green spaces. They can also represent many other features. It is a framework for writing rules. And in this example, right, we have a rule that represents a street right-of-way. This is the complete street rule developed by David Wasserman. And just by changing a few parameters, changing the width of the carriageway, the width of the sidewalk, parameters in the rules that control what populates these different components of a street, right? We can change the configuration of that street. And again, off the street, we can report performance. You know, depending on the configuration, it might be better or worse for pedestrians or better or worse for bicyclists, and we can measure that, or we can measure how much asphalt is in this area or how many trees we're going to have to plant along it. How does CityEngine work? You create existing condition. It supports importation of file geodatabase in a variety of formats from CAD and other sources. If you don't have any information, you can use that get map data function or reach out and get free publicly available information from OpenStreetMap. And if you have an ArcGIS Online account, elevation and imagery from ArcGIS Online. You write rules that represent different architectural styles, different zoning regulation, different street types, different types of open space. If you don't want to learn CGA, there's actually an Esri library that ships with CityEngine and a variety of examples that have existing rules that you can use just out of the box to create 3D representations. Once you've created your example of existing condition, you draw your designs against it and you use rules to enhance those designs and guide those designs. CityEngine supports multiple scenarios, so you can evaluate these scenarios side by side to decide which one is best. And then you can publish those and share them to get feedback, right? So what are CityEngine's capabilities? It can make realistic thematic or conceptual representations of buildings, streets, green spaces, and other components of the urban environment. It has metrics that it can expose in reports and dashboards, and then also a collection of interactive analytical tools to help guide your decision making. It does scenario management and comparison, so you can actually store multiple alternatives. It publishes to the web as web scenes. It also exports to game engines, so you can do high-end visualization, or you could also do immersive virtual reality or augmented reality. And it integrates with the ArcGIS platform, and that it supports the consumption of services. It's used primarily in conceptual planning, master planning, and site planning, but also as a bridge for all of 3 of these design activities to virtual reality and augmented reality and game engines in general. So what's new in CityEngine that came out last year? Let's talk a little bit about the last release. We added support for a new format, USD, Universal Scene Description, both import and export support. This is becoming a more common way of exchanging 3D information. We added multiple level of detail support when exporting to Unreal. So one of the amazing things you can do in CityEngine is when you write a rule, you can write in multiple levels of details. For instance, this has a high, a medium, and a low level of detail, this rule, which is called the building construction rule in the Redlands example. So what I want to do is when I'm in Unreal, I want things that are farther away to use the low level of detail and the things that are closer to use the high level of detail. And so now if you have LODs built into your rules, we're supporting automatic LOD switching when you export to Unreal to improve visual performance when you're generating animations of architectural designs or consuming it in a VR environment. We've greatly improved the drawing tools in CityEngine to actually help you create these designs, enhanced the snapping, allowing snapping to streets, added in guidelines, adding guidelines that snap to streets, improved the ability to draw holes and cut shapes from shapes. So you can actually do Booleans between two different shapes. The ability to align, for instance, guidelines to adjacent features. So I've aligned it to an angle on that adjacent parcel and then brought that angle across into this newly proposed building. And then, of course, I can apply rules to it to enhance the proposed design, maybe split it into floors or add architectural detail. And then a lot of these enhancements also work to improve the street editing in general. One of the common frustrations or requests the users had is when they were working with editing and modifying features, they select a collection of features and then they accidentally select a feature they didn't intend to select. For instance, they got a portion of a road. Now when you do undo, it actually flips between your different selection elements. So you can walk your selection back bit by bit. We improved the measurement tool. So the measurement tool worked point to point. It was very good at aligning to vertical and horizontal surfaces, but we did a lot of work to improve it to make it better at aligning to diagonal surfaces so that you can, for instance, dive inside of a building and measure the length of the railing, or if you're trying to understand the spacing between the staircase and a structural piece in the building, you can more easily measure in 3D to better understand your data. And we've improved the integration between CityEngine and ArcGIS Urban. So here I have a set of buildings. We added in the support for sky planes into ArcGIS Urban. That's actually coming from the procedural rule for ArcGIS Urban that we write in CityEngine. So that's shared between the two platforms. Here I am in ArcGIS Urban. I'm looking at a plan for the city of Honolulu. I can now import that plan into CityEngine and do modifications and changes to the plan and CityEngine to enhance it. For instance, I could apply rules that provide a more compelling representation. So instead of representing them as Jello cubes of space uses, I'm going to represent them as buildings with architectural detail, streets with street furniture and assets, parking spaces, green space. Gives me a much more visually compelling representation of what this proposed plan might look like. One other thing I wanted to mention about ArcGIS CityEngine is there is an SDK, so you can build your own procedural capabilities into third-party applications. So we've actually built some of these plugins for different applications. So for instance, Palladio allows you to do procedural generation from CityEngine rules and side effects Houdini. Cerelio provides the same capability directly in Autodesk's Maya. Vertuvio, the most recent addition to this collection of plugins, allows you to do procedural generation inside Unreal Engine. So you can actually do it while you're authoring a game, make changes parameter and generate different kinds of buildings. For the GIS community, probably the most exciting one is the PyPRT. This is a set of Python bindings for the CityEngine SDK. That means, for instance, you could run the CityEngine SDK in an ArcGIS notebook and do procedural generation in a notebook on the web and then push the results out to a service, allowing you to do some web-based generation of procedural tools. And then there's the core SDK, which is a set of C++ APIs with documentation that you could use to build your own integration into some other application. So thank you for attending this demo theater. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Eric Whitner. My email is ewhitner@esri.com. And we'll ask you to please provide your feedback on this section by clicking on the survey link below. Thank you very much.